For those with good taste.
Welcome back, Tasties and Tastettes, and this week, A Cop Goes Gangster.
Gang, gang.
We're talking Den of Thieves 2.
Pantera.
I thought you were going to do, like, what's their song? Respect. Are you talking to me? Is that them?
I have no idea.
Don't know any Pantera?
I don't.
All right, not a Pantera podcast, apparently. But yeah, this week we are talking Den of Thieves 2, the sequel. Deuce.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler.
Garage.
O'Shea Burchett Jackson.
Is that actually his middle name, or are you making one up?
Dave.
Made up. Okay, cool.
Made up. That's correct.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of other people, including MMA fighters such as Dante.
That guy.
Vitor Belfort and Cyril Gahn are at least two that I saw.
Chuck Liddell.
Not in this. Has done movies before, not in this one. Vitor Belfort, Cyril Gahn.
Rampage Jackson.
Cool. He would have fit, but he was not in this either. Mr. T, you could also call him. Let's start here, though. So you both have seen Den of Thieves previously to this past couple weeks? Or?
So I had seen it before, yeah.
Okay. And you just watched it, but you just rewatched it.
Yeah.
Let's get a quick temp check. Where are we at on the... Are we in the den? Are we just outside of the den? Are we down the street from the den?
Honestly, man, I'm in the den.
You're in the den, Dave.
Yeah.
You're in the den, feet up on the coffee table.
Are you Uniden?
That was Call me,
no, it's just bad. Yeah.
Carly Rae Jepsen?
You're just not following. Uniden is a phone company. Call me, maybe. It was a bar.
Oh.
Trust.
Got it.
It was a flip.
Can you hear me now?
Fuck
Good.
those commercials, huh? Let's go on a rant about that. Fuck those commercials. Can you hear me? Good.
I don't know.
Give me now.
I'm a
Good.
fan of what's her name?
Good.
Lily from AT&T.
Yeah, dude. Fuck that bitch. She never gave me the deals she said she would.
Damn.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so temperature check. Dave, in the den, out of the den, down the street from the den, around the corner from the den, across the water, across the pond.
So, like, movie one,
That's a
I
Europe joke.
only saw the movie 2 or 3 days ago. The first movie. Really liked it, and definitely seemed like, it was a movie that deserved a sequel.
So in the den?
Yeah.
So-
feet up on the coffee table.
You only made it like 30 minutes through when you initially watched it. Was that just you were tired, or were you not feeling it initially?
No, I had something.
Oh, okay. So then when you jumped back in, you were like all into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first one, I mean, most people call it like a Heat ripoff. It's got like
I can
those
see that,
old heist vibe.
Like cop versus robber.
Yeah,
kind of feel,
It was kind of a throwback vibe. And I think what sold me in the first movie and another bright spot into the second, I mean, Gerard Butler, I think like this is one of the most fun roles that I think he's done in a long time.
I love just like douchebag Gerard Butler. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some takes on him, but yeah, just off of the first one, like he just like the fact that he sweats from the beginning of the movie to like the end of the movie is the most impressive shit ever. Like he's just constantly sweating. And I love that for him. I love like in the first movie, like even just like both movies do this. Like I as we get into the review of this one, thinking about the first movie, I guess they did this too, where they just have these scenes that don't really have much to do with the movie itself. And it's very much that feels like to me that they've been aware through both of these movies that they plan on making like several of them.
Yeah.
Because I think that they've done a good job of being focused on having scenes that are just character driven, not really like plot driven or anything. So like in the first movie, when he goes to the dinner with his wife, like he's fresh off of a divorce, like or like separation. They're not even divorced yet. And like he shows up at the dinner party and it's just the most uncomfortable shit ever as he's just bullying her new boyfriend.
That was
and,
great.
Yeah. But like that scene does nothing to progress any type of storyline
Character building
or anything. It's just purely like, let's give Gerard Butler a scene where he can be like a skeezy cop who abuses his power and is a drunk, and it like just sets the tone of the character. It's not really a scene that's advancing anything other than letting you know what kind of character. And I think this movie has more of those scenes.
The second movie?
Yeah. Not
Okay,
not the uncomfortableness necessarily, but just more scenes
more
of
of like the side, like
yeah,
character
just like
building
this.
scenes.
What is
Yeah.
and I can get into some specific ones. There was ones that were like in my mind where I was like, what does this mean
like where's this
to
going?
the movie? And I think what it was, at least with this movie, is the 2 hour and 20-minute runtime is long.
Yeah.
So there were certain scenes where I was like, what is this really doing here? You know?
I mean, I feel like I completely disagree with the take of the second movie does that more. Maybe
It doesn't
it
do it
doesn't.
more. I just think it does it. It still does it.
I think it does a worse job at it because personally, I didn't feel a single connection to any other side character other than
Not talking about side characters. I'm talking about more scenes of Gerard Butler and O'Shea, like just kind of just talking. You know? So for instance, I thought like the shawarma scene. Like, what did the shawarma scene do other than kind of present itself to where they get picked up by that group? But like that could have happened in any way. But they included the shawarma scene to give you backstory to those characters that generally, like, I don't think matters that much unless you plan on building this longer arc with these characters to be bought into. I would go with another scene that stood out to me as one that I questioned. Just the music scene when they're in the garage and they have the little scene where they're playing the speaker. Like, what did that scene,
going back
like,
and
what
forth
is
about
that
the music,
scene
yeah.
there? Like, we're in a 2 hour and 20-minute runtime. And like, what did that scene need to be there for? To where in the second movie, more than the first movie, I felt like I was watching a director's cut kind of for this movie.
I can see that.
Where this movie was just like, hey, we filmed a bunch of shit that I can pull from, and nobody like checked the director and said like, hey, we could probably shave off like 15 to 20 minutes of this movie with just little bits and pieces. Because even the beginning, before we get to the shawarma thing, just the club scene.
Club scene was too long.
It's fun.
It was fun, but it's too long.
They said before that scene, they're like, what if we just take him, like we drag him into the deep water or whatever? It was something like that. But it was like, you know, like to me, it was like supposed to be a test, right?
Yeah,
was what it
they were
sounded
sussing
like.
him
They were
out.
setting him up. So then is the test, let's get him super fucked up? Was that the goal of the test?
Yeah, because didn't O'Shea tell him like, hey, like,
Well, yeah, the
cops
cop
wouldn't take
part, I get
drugs,
that.
so-
But like that, what did that have to do with digging him? Like you could have had him hit a joint, and that's not dragging him. Like the intent was get him super fucked up. But like that scene, just like I don't know what it lent to it, you know? Like it just like that whole stretch of the movie there just felt like kind of it's fun. And like I loved watching Gerard Butler, like again, just like fucked up.
that scene was great. Yeah.
It's really funny and all that. But yeah, it just felt like I was watching a little bit of a director's cut with this movie rather than a super clean, like polished
I
film.
can see that. Yeah.
Which I think entails kind of what they've set up as the ambiance of both movies, that it's a little bit of a dirtier, grimier
These
film.
movies feel to me like if they play their cards right, they can kind of pick up the mantle on where Fast is going to leave off.
Well, I mean, I think that's certainly a goal when I see
know what I mean?
some
Like-
of what
like,
they set
Where
up.
they're trying to be the new like It heist franchise.
It's I mean, without you know what's funny, I would have said without the comedy, but then you see some of like they definitely tried. That was the other part of this
There is
movie
some
that was
comedy there, yeah.
this was turned into at some point again, like this just goes into it feeling like a director's cut and not a super polished movie, is that there were scenes that I was like, is this like a buddy cop movie now, you know, like
Yeah.
like this is like the Odd Couple pairing, because like when they're swimming back from the ocean and like walking on shore and they're like bickering back and forth in the water and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this just feels tonally feels a little weird, the joking and stuff that you didn't really get in the first
one,
movie
yeah.
at all. And then this movie just felt like it was kind of a mishmash of a couple of different genres of movies that were just kind of jumbled together. You know, for me,
Yeah.
it felt like this movie didn't have as much clear direction as the first movie did to me.
I can see that, yeah.
Because even, you know, I'm sure one of the
I
things
think they were just trying. I'm sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off,
you're
but I
good.
just feel like they're trying to like ramp up like the Hollywood formulas in this one almost.
yeah. Like it definitely the problem I think I have, and I think I'm coming off like I didn't like this movie, because I did. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it did feel there was more of a complexity to the first Den of Thieves. Like between
well,
like
the first Den of Thieves had like the really fun twist.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like between the O'Shea stuff of like O'Shea was presented as not the guy in the first movie. You don't
Yeah.
really realize, or, you know, like you could have picked up on the tells or whatever, but the way they play the movie out is that you don't know until the end
Yeah,
that he's been the guy.
And like that's one of the things I do remember from my first watch. So when I was rewatching it the second time out, like picking up on those little notes where it's like, oh, he is the shot caller.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the first movie personally did a better job with like fleshing out all the characters that were in it. Plus, I feel like the tone and the I guess just the tension in the first movie with like Merriman as being like he is the bad guy essentially in this, where the second movie there really wasn't a bad guy.
That you had two opposing sides, but you could choose which side
right
that you and I think that's where I compared it to like Point Break, because like even though Swayze's the bad guy and like they're the bad guys, like they were super like you were part of that group for a lot of the movie, and like you grow to like those characters even though they're technically the villain. I think that like I think the first one had 3 established leads that you could like identify or like you understood their desire.
But I think like the first movie did a really good job of between Nick and Merriman, there was like this constant like just tug of like, oh, he's got the upper hand.
This
And
machismo like ego to it. Yeah. And then so this movie picks up like here's a question. How far did they say a timetable that had passed
I don't think
between
so.
the first and the
I would
second?
assume the
Like,
movie came out 6 years prior. I think
there was a timetable.
Like it felt like it was initially I was like, was this a couple years?
There was a timetable in there
Okay.
somewhere. I just forget what it was. I want to say it was like 10 years or something like that.
No, it couldn't be 10 years.
I would assume
No
just
way,
the
right?
runtime. The movie came out 6 years ago. I would feel like it was just a 6-year shift.
I don't know if that makes sense. Because like what is
when he's setting
the whole
out to go
idea-
after him and they're like, oh, it's been X amount of time. Like,
Yeah, but like, well,
I feel like that was something that was said.
It felt like it was like, yeah, we're over and done with it, but it was more so they were over and done with it, not because time had passed, but because they didn't want bad PR that the national
that too, yeah,
that they had
It's like,
gotten hit.
We
So
can't
like that,
admit that the Federal Reserve was robbed.
I just didn't feel like it was like 10 years or even 6 years, only because like he's been holding, and I get it, it's like his character, like Nick's character, is like a dog with a bone to a point. Like I understand that, like that. He even that's the one part about that shawarma conversation, right? Like I'm saying that shawarma conversation is like is kind of just dialogue that's there. It does add to the characters. Like it's nice knowing, like
Once
okay,
to give you backstory on them so you know where they come from.
yeah, this is how O'Shea became. I didn't like necessarily identify too much with O'Shea's reason for why he's like addicted to stealing.
Yeah.
I didn't really identify with
it was
that.
just like the whole I'm in it for the challenge kind of
yeah,
thing.
but then like the flip side, you understand
why
like Nick is
became
like
a cop.
like I became a cop and that was my first hunt. Now you know for his character, like everything for
is
him
a hunt.
is like I have an objective and I'm gonna conquer that objective. And so I understand like where he would hold on to it for so long, but it didn't feel like 6 years has passed, I guess. Like it hadn't felt like there was so much growth from O'Shea's character that you had 6 years of time between it. Like I don't know, I didn't feel it as much. The one thing I did like about this more than I liked about the first one, and Dante, I hope you feel the same way. It was nice to get some plus size representation from a lead male in an action movie. Like I'm glad that it's not like I'm not getting Jack Reacher. Like
like O'Shea ain't exactly swole.
Like I got a thick boy who looked like me.
And I mean Gerard put on some too.
And here's the beautiful thing about the characters in this movie is I have an overweight star that never feel like you never truly feel like he's like behind, because his opposite is a man who is hungover for the accumulation of 5 hours of movie time. He has just been hungover the entirety of it. So like these two characters that are just completely out of shape for their scenario, you never really feel either one of them's exposed as being like out of shape.
The one time it felt like okay is when they did like the whole scaling across.
Yes,
on the
and he was
pole,
out.
and
You
like,
could hear him deep breathing.
Even climbing back up the elevator shaft was all just the
Oh,
grunting.
yeah.
I loved that. I loved the climbing back up the elevator because I never really thought about it. I was like, wow, it is really easy to go down, huh? Never really thought about the fact that it probably can't have an automated thing to pull me back up like that. And the fact, like when they were doing it, I was like, they think in 80 seconds they can get 4 people and like all of the shit back up this elevator, you know? But I really liked that, like, some of it's not plausible. Like, because O'Shea's so out of shape, I don't think he could swim back from the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
No.
Like, I would have, like, and I liked his, like, I'm negative buoyant. like, I thought that was really funny. But I thought it would have been funny if there was a scene of, like, him just, like on his back being naturally, like, he's like, I'm gassed, but I'm just floating in the ocean.
Just let the waves carry me in.
Also educational. I didn't know I had to take my shoes off if that happened to me. Had no idea.
I don't know if that's a real thing. I didn't fact check it.
Feels like it's a real thing, right?
No idea.
Like, yeah, if you'll drown if you keep your shoes on. It's like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't really know that. I get that it's more weight,
Yeah.
but what else does it do?
I don't know.
What's the difference? What did you feel about the heist in this movie versus, because I think that's what this probably, a lot of it comes down to.
The actual act of the heist was leveled up in this movie, but I feel like the intricacy of the heist in the first movie was better.
Yes.
I enjoyed the race against like the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a cool, like, all right, you got like 80 seconds, you got 120 seconds. All right, like, next room, green, go. And then, like,
I like how they explained a lot of the stuff they did, right? Like, because like they had a whole answer on how they did that, but there was definitely a few things where I was like, well, that just doesn't really fit.
I think I agree with both of you guys. I think that the heist itself in this movie, I enjoyed. Like the actual going through the rooms and like all of that. Like, I felt like there was like a tension and a pressure that they were able to establish with that. Yeah. I think the thing that I didn't like as much from the first one to this one is part of what I enjoy about, like, Fast Five comes to mind when I was thinking about this for heist movies, right?
Yeah.
I like in Fast Five that they're like, okay, this is a super complex job. So they show you going and how they get the car. They show you testing the times to try and get the timing right and all of these things. Whereas it felt like in this movie, we start the plan and we have like 2 months, they tell us, right? Like 6 weeks or something to execute the plan. But I feel like we saw very little of the actual planning of it. And I would have enjoyed, I think, seeing them execute more, because really what you got was they picked out the location that didn't to explain why there was no cameras, right? Yep. And that also explained why that one guy knew how to cut them off on their route out, right? Like, he knew where they were going to be driving once they executed the job. That made sense, and I liked the cohesiveness of that. I liked they show him a little bit, like in the scene with the speaker scene is when he's spray painting the car black, right? But they don't show you put the white wrap over it.
Yeah, because that threw me off for like a half second when you see the white car, and then I was like, never mind.
Which is smart. But again, they showed you just enough so you're like, I get it, that makes sense. And then they give you the scene with Gerard Butler going into the safe so that they can map out. But those are really the only 3 scenes that really set up the plot to like, how the heist is going to happen.
I think the best way I could say it is the first movie gave me a lot more of like a moment versus like this was just like
You felt how difficult it was to plan. And like the steps that they had to take. And I would have liked, if you have 6 months to plan for something, like the heist itself doesn't need to take up 45 minutes. You could give me a 20-minute heist because you've given me the steps, and now I can just see it. I can see the sped up part of it actually happening. And I felt like that was where it missed a little, is I would have liked to have just seen more of that, like, steps to get to there, rather than just like all of a sudden we're in the heist. Like, there was no like day before the heist where they're like, prepping, it's gonna be go time tomorrow or anything. Like, none of that. All of a sudden the heist just happens because there's a game that night, which they didn't even say. They could have, like, it would have been such an easy scene to say, all right, like, the perfect day to do it is we have a soccer game on Saturday, the whatever, we have a week till deadline, so that we know that like how hard is that to just give us that anticipation of like, okay, we're coming up against the deadline, we need to figure this out.
They didn't know that was their window to strike though until the lady had said like, hey, we're all going to that game that night.
But even I don't think that like I know I heard that, but like there was no stop.
There was like, no like stop. They were talking realization.
About they were talking about this is the time that we need to do it. Whereas I feel like Ocean's franchise, even the Fast franchise, would have
highlighted that realization a little better,
and then locked in on the actual planning aspect of it, because like what were they doing the day before they did the plan? Like I like, was that him going into the vault? Was the the scene before the plan kind of goes into action.
Because I think that might have been when she had told them, right?
Yeah, well,
The
okay.
elevator. Yeah.
Yeah, because she tells him, like, you've got to lock in now. And it's like from there on, we're just into the thing. The other part, the crew, I think, Dave, you kind of said this earlier when we were talking about the characters and the being more invested. I do think, and maybe part of it's like a character like 50 Cent being involved in the first movie.
Yeah.
That exterior crew.
They're all forgettable.
Yeah, I do like the communications guy, the one that was in the back seat during the chase. Like, I thought he was the most likable and had the most, like, and I guess like they invested the most into him being the other guy in the movie. But yeah, I just don't think the crew outside of the girl, I think, because she seems like a character who's going to come back with the idea that you're going to be
even
doing
her.
this.
It felt like she had like a backseat in this though.
She had a backseat to the robbery. The one part that makes me feel like she's still involved is she makes it very clear to Gerard Butler's character, like,
Don't screw me
don't
over.
screw me over.
Yeah.
And then they do such a thing of focusing on her
Driving
in the
away.
police car and everything that they're like, she's going to hold a grudge.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this is going to come back up in some regard, you know?
Yeah.
Now, how do you guys envision, if we're plotting out the future of this franchise, how do you envision her character being involved? Is this character, is she going to be a bad guy who's, because of that chip on her shoulder, is coming to get Nick, or is that going to end up being the love interest? Like,
I think it's gonna be like a love interest thing. Like they're at odds, but they get through it
Yes.
and make up halfway through.
so
whatever
she's
the
going to
third
be
movie
like
is.
the pseudo bad guy for the better part of a half of the next movie.
Yeah.
And then end up on their side.
It's gonna be somewhere like he saves her life or something, and she flips.
Yeah.
Because this just feels like this is gonna be, if it carries on as a franchise, it's gonna just pull all the Hollywood tropes.
Well, there's already a rumor of a third movie called that's tentatively being named Den of Thieves.
No,
I wish I was making that up. I actually read that before
No.
in the IMDb trivia.
because you said that, and all I heard was Expendables.
Yeah, Den of Thieves, dude. I fucking kind of love that,
I
actually.
hate it.
Yeah. This movie cost $40 million to make.
That's it.
Yeah, I think it made 12 million or 13 million.
They
this
did all
year.
that on a $40 million budget.
Yeah, I think so.
We are at 15 million so far.
Okay.
Domestic.
Can you
And-
confirm the budget?
And it has a B+ audience score. So people who are going to see the movie, like actual viewers, really like it. Rotten Tomato score is only 59%.
Yeah.
So not super high.
I could see where it would fall low critically, but I think it's an exciting enough movie that the audience score is probably significantly higher.
$40
than that,
million
right?
dollar budget.
40. Yeah, I was right. Okay. So the first movie did not, I think, have a lot of box office success. It's a movie
80 million worldwide.
for this movie so far.
No.
The first movie.
First
Yeah.
one,
Okay. So what I was going to say is this: the first movie is a movie that got most of its fanfare off of streaming. It got its second life, and I don't know how they decide this, right? Like, it used to be like a movie would fail in the movie theater, but then you'd have like the release, the DVD and
Yeah.
VOD releases is what's driving the idea that they could get a sequel, right?
Yeah.
How does streaming, because there's not like, I don't know, and this is we might not know the answer to this, but like, how does the residual views from streaming affect monetary compensation to justify another movie?
I think that all works itself out in negotiations, right? It's like either they just, like, the streaming service just buys out the rights to be able to stream that movie and that's it. That's all you get.
Yeah.
Or are they then trying to offer in, like, maybe we buy it at a discount and if it does well, we pay you out royalties. So I think it all depends on that negotiation. I don't know if it just has like a flat way it works out.
Yeah, I guess it would be in the contracts whether or not it's like, hey, are you going to make your money on, we're going to rent this movie from you for 3 months? Or is it going to be, all right, we're going to rent this movie and then you get paid out in how many views?
Because I
you get?
imagine that's how they get like the content, right? Is like they have to negotiate out how much they buy it for to see how much they can bring in on it.
Yeah.
So like they may be like, oh, hey, your box office run wasn't that great. How about you let us get the rights to this for 3 months? We'll give you XYZ. And if it does well, we'll pay you out X percentage of royalties.
So I definitely, like, I'm sure it is like Netflix is like, we want to be the first ones to have this on our streaming service, right?
Yeah.
So like, we're going to pay you to be so we can be the exclusive first people to have access to it. So like, that makes a bunch of sense to me. But then like Netflix is, and I'm sure like, through communication channels on the back end, like the people can find out the information, but Netflix doesn't make it readily available, like the viewership necessarily on their
Yeah.
broadcasts, right? So like and the other part is like, even if you get Den of Thieves, like it's not like Den of Thieves is driving people to subscribe to Netflix. So I think that that's where I lose. Like I understand what you guys are saying, but I get kind of like,
I'm just speculating.
Yeah,
I
I think you guys are probably right, but like, isn't it a little like weird where it's like Netflix just needs stuff to be on their network, but they're not buying stuff with the idea that it's going to make people sign up.
Yeah,
for their service.
And also,
I
if you're the service provider, who's to tell you how many? Like, who's to tell me how many streams you're getting?
Yeah,
like if you're the one that's the only one that can provide me that information.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I just like it's how do you get your finger on the pulse of just how successful your movie is doing on that streaming platform necessarily. Yeah, it kind of
because like Netflix would be like, oh yeah, we don't want to pay out. Yeah, no, it's streaming horribly.
Yeah, you can just say what you want it to, and it's up to like. But that's where I was saying, I'm sure there's back end because of executives that like know what's going on and like they have access. Yeah, couple other things. So the premise of this is like he steals from a Russian mobster, basically.
No.
Was
mafia,
Italian mafia. Okay, I knew it was like some type of mob, but like so Italian mafia. He steals from them to set up a way to get into the diamond exchange to be able to steal from the diamond exchange. Couple things. They said there was like $800 million that they were going to have access to stealing from the diamond exchange. There's no way they got 800 million. Like we've done Payday, guys. Like we've played Payday. I have rummaged through security boxes. Though the stuff that they poured out, like. That I don't know how much money they actually got from that.
You're not seeing a ton of stuff, but I imagine that a lot of those like jewels and stuff were like extremely like valuable.
It's just like when they laid it all out on the table at the end, I was like, I didn't see them take this much. Like, where did they?
I actually felt like they took more,
really,
and then they had less on the table.
Huh? Okay. So my other part of this is they steal from like this super powerful dude in the Italian mafia. And the theory is that this is his like retirement that he's invested in. But the most powerful guy in the Italian mafia's retirement was only equated to $4.2 million.
Right.
That's short change.
Like he's not that, and even the house that they had him stationed, and I get that's because they had to hide him because somebody tried to kill him or something. But like the house that he was in was not like he was in the middle of he was in a hunting cabin in the middle of the woods. He wasn't like in like a nice estate that's well guarded with a ton of like you'd expect like a guy in the highest point of the Italian mafia would have just armed guards, but he would be in like
a nice compound or something.
Yeah, like thing instead of a hunting cabin in the woods with like with Vitor Belfort as his one security guard outside of it, So I thought that was like a little weird. I was like, why is this guy only worth like he shouldn't be at the top of the food chain if he's only worth 4.2.
So, there's definitely a lot of those weird little holes. I think one of the weirdest ones for me though is Merriman's like girlfriend or whatever she was, knowing exactly
the
where
bank.
Yeah, exactly where the bank that he put the money in is.
Why would he have shared that much? Because he wasn't even
like the way the first movie ended. He wasn't cool with any of them. He just dipped out.
And that stripper that you're talking about, right? That wasn't his girlfriend. That was the other. Well, so yeah, it was Merriman. Not what's O'Shea's Nick?
No. O'Shea is Donnie, right?
Donnie. What's his last name that Nick
calls him? No, I'm just kidding. Fraulein,
yeah.
That's not his last name, I don't think. I think that's just something he calls him.
Just calls him that. Yeah. Okay. But like, isn't that kind of like why would she have known? Like he didn't tell her. Like
that's what threw me off. Because like that's what put him on his scent and everything. And it was just like, all right, cool. Like that's how we're gonna get it going. Whatever. But like,
because like Merriman in the first movie was just a tool to get the job done. They weren't.
He would have never shared anything with him.
Yeah, they weren't genuinely friends. He didn't tell. And this is the other part where it's like, is it really like 10 years later or 6 years later that she knows where the money's been for
that whole time?
All that time, that
also he's such a mastermind. Why is he still using the same bank?
Yeah, and why did he? Yeah, like if he was such a mastermind, why did he put it in a bank that like is right across the street from the place he's got to rob?
Yeah, there's a lot of holes, but overall, I don't think they bothered me that much. But her knowing that was like the one that I was just like, nah.
Yeah, I think Donnie is the she's the lead, so he should be the most interesting character. But they did a better job in the first movie of making him seem unassuming and then being like he's a genius. Whereas this movie coming in with the already
They
knowledge,
showed more of his flaws.
yeah, of the knowledge that he's a genius does not make him feel as much like a genius now that you have the expectation. The other last thing I want to talk about this movie is, did you guys find yourself, because of the way the first movie went with that twist, I found myself this whole movie, and I feel like it's similar to that Now You See Me movie, right? Like where it's a heist movie, but because there's going to be like the magic trick or whatever that like flips the story. The thing that was kind of maybe a letdown in a way for the second of these movies,
there was no magic.
This
trick.
movie's very straightforward. Yeah. Like it was. How early did you guys know how this was going to end?
Oh, like almost right away.
Immediately.
Right, like the second
he said like I'm with you, but you can't trust me. I was like, okay, cool, great.
That whole scene,
right
but even before, like right before that scene, when he leaves the Pantera team or whatever it is, like Pantera's the team he's on.
Yeah.
What was the task force?
Oh, the
Panther
something dogs.
No, they were Pantera. It was task force Pantera, and then it was the Panthers is the group that he joined that was stealing, wasn't it? Wasn't it the task force called Pantera?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was the Wolves and the Tigers. The Tigers and the Panthers.
Sure.
Panthers and the Tigers were the other two. Yeah, the Panthers is the group that Donnie had with the theft.
Yeah.
And then the Tigers is the group that the driver leaves
to start or join.
Yeah,
or whatever, yeah.
join up with. Yeah,
okay.
Was what that was. I don't know. It was not really super relevant. But yeah, I just found myself the whole time being like, oh, when's the twist coming? But there's not going to be a twist because it's very obvious to me that the twist is that Nick
this
is
was just way
faking
more
bad the whole
predictable
time.
than the first one.
Yeah, like Nick's faking bad the whole time, but he's never going to truly be bad. And then on top of that shawarma conversation basically told you exactly what was going to happen. Is that like since then I've always been on the hunt. Like this is all, and he told you I hate you because you got one over on me. And I'm always in it for the hunt. This was always going to be like the
one
outcome.
thing I do like though is like they kind of set it up to end this in a way where it's like they could be like, all right, now we're even.
Well, so they
and
do
then
that,
team
right? Like,
up. Yeah,
they have the exact we're even moment. I think I missed something in the end here that maybe you guys can fill me in on. Mob guy or mafia guy gets the news article, sees O'Shea's picture, and is that because Nick calls that guy, or like what? Like how is Nick responsible? Because he tells him pick the seat in the back left, right?
The guy just picks up the phone. And
I also
think
didn't understand the whole back left thing because he was the only guy in the fucking transport.
And it didn't.
Right.
You would think that somebody was going to get shot if he was in the wrong seat.
And he didn't listen to the advice. It had to be told to him again when they were cutting open the car.
But he moves. He was in the back left, and then he moves to the back.
No,
right.
I don't think
he
they
was
were
in the
telling-
back right.
Well, I guess is it back left if you're looking at the car, or if you're in the car?
No, if you're whatever you're
If
looking.
you're in the car,
Okay, because if you were looking at the car, he was in the back left. If you were in the car, he was in the back right.
Right.
So this is where I'm at. Like,
No.
which
So
way
when
is
they
it?
opened the door, they had to yell back left, and he switched seats.
Yeah. Okay.
So he didn't.
Is that
even
what
listen
that
to the
was?
advice. Yeah.
I thought they were yelling back left to like communicate with each other. Like that's where we're going. Like that's what we're after.
No, get out of the way. We're chopping this door.
But like, yeah, like I didn't understand
Either way, dumb.
how is Nick involved with the getting him out of prison, because that's what it's implied, right?
Yeah.
Because Nick's like smiling, walking away, and didn't he get the thing in the mail from the letter or the text from Donnie saying
Tiger changes his stripes after all.
implying that he's now officially switched
Yeah,
to being a criminal, essentially.
I
which
think
is
he was
Paul
just
Walker's
helping his
storyline,
friend.
which, yeah,
that's
it's
like,
very much
I
Paul
was
Walker's
drawing Fast and
storyline.
Furious comparisons the whole time.
Except Paul Walker's not drunk the whole movie.
I mean, there was that one time at the party where he drank Vince's Corona, but whatever.
Yeah. I like that part. I think I was struggling like to see how like the logic added up there. I do get it. Like, so because you're saying that the Italian mob guy picks up the phone, right?
And calls Nick, I think.
Why would he have Nick's phone
I don't
number?
know.
I think because he had a line out both of them, because when he picked up Donnie for robbing him, Nick was with him. So maybe after Donnie got locked up, he was like, "Hey, you're a cop. Find out where he's at for me," or some shit. I don't know. It just feels like that's something you're gonna have to leave open to interpretation, but that's I guess the way I would justify it.
Like and now Okay, so let's talk about where they're going because we're going to get a third one, right? Like this is going to probably do well enough and it's not a huge budget, so like $40 million, like it's feasible. You can make these movies, and you're going to consistently double your box office. Is going to double what you made to cost to make it, right? Do we think? So is it going to be he's doing jobs for the Italian mob now, and we're just we're along for the ride, or is he going to be trying to get away from?
He's going to be trying to get out. He doesn't want to be under anybody's thumb.
And so this is the new puzzle that he's got to try and figure out: is how do I?
He's got to run a game for them, but he's also got to figure out his out.
Yeah, so it's going to be a shell game of how do I pretend I'm working for them, but I'm actually stealing it for myself while also getting myself out.
They're basically setting up the next movie, and I think that's what it's going to be.
And so along lines of Fast and the Furious, are we at the point of the end of Fast 4 where they break Vin out of prison? Because now is Donnie a super highly most wanted guy? Because he's broken out, he was broken out of prison.
Yeah.
Okay. So is he going to be on the run? He's going to be on the run in the next movie. Do we think
they're going to do some cheesy thing? He's a ghost. Nobody can find him.
Well, he's already technically been that.
Yeah.
Through that's why Nick couldn't find him anywhere, right? It took a random job popping up that he was that seems like that could be Donnie,
Oh, it wasn't even that. He went to the stripper and was like,
"Is that Donnie?"
No, he was like, "Tell me where the money is."
It took him 6 years to do that.
Yeah.
Again, I just don't think it's 6 years.
It
feels like it's got to be quicker than
it
that.
probably isn't.
Yeah, so he'll probably be on the run. Do we think that Nick will have been retired or have left the police force, or is he still going to be a cop?
I guess that's one thing I'm unsure of, if he's going to try and play both sides or if he's just going to full switch.
Yeah, is he more valuable still being?
Because the problem is they kind of have him set up as he's in a position where he has nothing to lose anyways.
But if he keeps being a cop, can Donnie ever actually trust him?
No.
Right? What does the rehabbing the trust look like?
I guess the trust would be now he has an involvement in breaking him out. So now I have something on you if you ever turn on me type thing.
I don't know if there's any way to prove that he helped break him out, because he can just be it was the Italian mob, dude.
Yeah.
I just think that's pretty easily covered up. Yeah, I think you have at least 3 characters returning. I could see the guy who was in the back seat returning as well, since he had a relationship with the girl. Yeah. And if she's going to return, would he come back?
She's the shot caller, right?
Yeah, also he was one of the ones who got actually taken down in this whole thing, so he has incentive to come back from it. My last question, we have a reason for why they were able to track them on that hillside to chase them, but how did those guys know where they were going to get crashed on the road just movie logic stuff, right?
Literally just have a car parked 20 feet away
yeah,
from
above,
where
perfectly above them on a hill to perfectly shoot them at the right time. Yeah, I was just how they...
Yeah, because they weren't ready to ambush until after they had crashed.
Yeah. Yeah, so if they didn't crash there, were they just going to shoot the cars as they drove by?
I don't know.
They would have been late.
Or were they waiting to rush to their car to hop in on a chase? I don't know.
Yeah, that was just the one thing. I'm rolling my eyes as I'm watching. I'm like, why are you there? How are you there?
Yeah, all movie logic.
Yeah.
The slow pan up the hill, it was them.
And perfect. I have this time and that will make it so you only wanted to kill. Why wouldn't they just kill everyone? You stole from me. I got back what I needed. And
it's the whole you managed to steal from me. I want your skill.
Yeah, they explain it, but then he would have never let him get arrested. They wouldn't have pushed him off the boat and said, "Go get my shit." They would have been you're gonna go steal.
I think that was a
come
test.
with us.
Yeah. You're gonna steal. You're working for me. You're gonna go steal back what I want. That would have already been on the table, right off rip. I feel like.
Nah, you're thinking American gang shit. This is the Italian mafia. They
That's
operate
fair.
different.
Yeah, they're 4 steps ahead at all times. Okay. First star rating of the year.
This is definitely my number 1 movie of the year.
I've seen 2.
This is my only one.
This is my number 1. Yeah.
This is the worst movie I've seen so far this year.
Also the worst movie I've seen so far this year.
I think I haven't actually given it. I'm good.
All right.
I haven't actually given it a star rating yet. But
I
in
haven't
real
either,
time,
but I can do it live.
I think 3.5 is where I'm going to drop it for right now.
I was landing on 3.
I gave it 2 stars.
Damn, hated it.
I thought it was pretty bad.
I think
boring.
3.5 is a little high
comparatively
for this. I mean,
to the first movie.
It's going to come down.
I came out high on enjoyment. Don't get me wrong, but I think like if I'm looking at it critically, like there was definitely a lot of holes, and I think 3 is probably the pocket it falls in.
I think it's going to start at 3 and fall down, similar to a Beekeeper thing for me from last year, where it's early in the year. I don't have anything that I'm referencing it up against. And it was long. I thought it was dry at points, but I enjoyed both lead actors quite a bit, and I enjoyed the franchise. And I think it's left me with stuff that I'm like looking forward to. So yeah, 3.5 stars. So the whole gambit: 2 stars, 3 stars, 3.5 stars. You guys make up your mind if you want to see it based on that. The whole damn spectrum. And the problem, as I've talked about many times, is 2 stars is not good enough to be good to see, but also not bad enough for me to justify telling you just go laugh at it.
The problem is 2 stars, 2 hours and 20 minutes is usually something you would hate.
That's tough. Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm more on the side of positive on this. If you liked the first one, I think especially if you enjoyed this version of Gerard Butler, then you'll get to the scene of him doing like all types of drugs, and you'll be like, okay, this is like the perfect fever dream possible. The only other thing I'll throw in before we sign off here, we talk about wet letterbox like surveys, things like that. I did want to throw it out. This has 3 stars on Letterboxd rather. So like right in line with you, Dante, exactly 3 stars. From reading it, like, you know, generally when you scroll through these Letterboxd reviews, you end up with like a lot of 1 or 2 stars pretty high up. Like I have to scroll down for a ways before I find anything below a 3-star rating for this movie, which I think says a decent amount. The first one I have that's less than 3 stars. Okay, well, sorry, I just read another one that was like for Men's Health. I spoke with O'Shea Jackson Jr. about how much these movies rule. I don't really understand that one.
For Men's Health.
Yeah, I thought it was going to turn into a fat joke. That's where I wanted to read it. Yeah, so this has a serious case of January syndrome, is what Cobb said, gave it a 2-star thing. So yeah, this is a 3.5-star January movie. That's where I'm kind of coming from. Like, it's relative to where it's out in the year. It's so early in the year. I don't have other things I'm comparing, so I think I'm going to over swing on how much I like it, because I think of everything now in a yearly spectrum, not in a totality. So
fair.
Cool. Anything else, guys? Nope. All right, well, this episode of Cop Went Gangster. And if you are gangster at home right now, it'd be really gangster of you to hit that like button on this podcast and maybe tell a friend, ask a friend.
And even if you're a law-abiding citizen, please hit that like button.
Drop a subscribe. Your finger has fallen on subscribe.
I see what you did there.
All right, until next week, we'll be seeing you.
Peace.
P.S. I love you.
Getting freaky with our fans.
That was another drop.
For those with good taste.